The truth always sets us free, but before it frees you, it destroys you. It destroys you because it reveals exactly where you've been lying to yourself, where you've been hiding behind excuses you defend as if they were legitimate reasons, where you've been choosing comfort over growth, safety over greatness, acceptable mediocrity over terrifying excellence. And that destruction hurts. It hurts like fire burning away dead skin so that new skin can grow. But it's exactly that pain that you need, not because you're a masochist, but because you've been avoiding the truth for so long that it now lives in the dark, growing, strengthening, waiting for the moment when you can no longer ignore it. The Stoics understood something modern culture refuses to accept. Uncomfortable truth is more valuable than comforting lies. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the most powerful empire in the world, chose to confront brutal truths every night in his meditations. Seneca, who could have lived in perpetual luxury, chose to constantly remind himself of his mortality and his flaws. Epictetus, who survived slavery, taught that real freedom comes from accepting truths most people prefer to deny, not because they enjoyed pain, but because they knew the pain of truth is temporary, while the suffering of lies is permanent. What follows are 10 Stoic teachings. They are not motivational affirmations designed to make you feel good. They are truths designed to wake you up. Each one hurts. Each one confronts. Each one reveals something you would rather not see. But each one also frees you. Because once the truth is exposed, once you see it clearly, without protective illusions, you gain a choice you didn't have before. You can continue living the lie consciously, knowing exactly what you're doing and why. Or you can let go of the lie and embrace the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And that choice, the freedom to choose consciously instead of living in automatic denial, is exactly what these 10 teachings will give you. But before we continue, before you discover the truths you'd rather not hear, you need to do more than listen passively. You need to declare a commitment you won't be able to retract when discomfort arrives. Go to the comments right now and write exactly this. I am ready to hear the truth I've been avoiding. These words are not an empty affirmation you'll forget in an hour. They are your declaration that you're willing to confront whatever these teachings reveal about you. They are your acknowledgement that you've been living in comfortable lies and that you've decided uncomfortable truth is better, and that you're ready for the pain that comes before liberation. Do it now. Pause. Go to the comments. Write, I am ready to hear the truth I've been avoiding. The Stoics understood the power of public declaration. They knew that when you name a truth externally, when you make it visible to others, you create a force that dramatically multiplies your ability to live by it. Because it's no longer a private thought you can abandon when it becomes inconvenient. It's a public commitment others have seen, and that visibility creates accountability that turns intention into action. This is not a moment for timidity, not a moment for maybe or I'll think about it as validity. This is the moment to decide definitively whether you will continue living in comforting lies that keep you stuck, or whether you will finally embrace the brutal truths that will free you, no matter how much they hurt. Prepare yourself, because what comes next is not designed to comfort you. It is designed to wake you up, and awakening always hurts before it liberates. First Stoic teaching: no one is coming to save you, not even yourself, if you keep waiting. There's a fantasy you've been feeding for years. The fantasy that someone will come, a mentor who will discover you, an opportunity that will rescue you, an event that will change everything without requiring you to change. And while you wait for that external salvation, your life slips through your fingers like sand. Epictetus was born a slave in the Roman Empire, not by choice, not by mistake, simply by the brutal accident of birth. He could have spent his entire life waiting for someone to free him, waiting for his master to change, waiting for the laws to change, waiting for luck to finally smile on him. But he didn't wait. He freed himself mentally first by accepting a brutal truth. No one was coming to save him. His freedom depended entirely on him, not on external circumstances. And that acceptance, that death of the fantasy of external rescue, is exactly what eventually led to his physical freedom. Because when he stopped waiting for someone else to save him, he began saving himself through the only things he truly controlled: his mind, his character, his response to circumstances. You are not physically enslaved, but you are mentally chained by the same fantasy. You're waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for a divine sign, waiting for the right push. And while you wait, the perfect moment is now, and you're wasting it. The divine sign is your constant dissatisfaction, and you're ignoring it. The right push is the brutal truth that, if you don't act now, you never will, and you're rejecting it. Epictetus taught something devastating about this. People are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of things. Your view of your situation is that something external must change before you can act. But that view is the prison, not the situation itself. And as long as you hold that belief, as long as you keep waiting for external rescue, you remain chained no matter how many opportunities appear. Because you'll reject every opportunity as not perfect enough, while waiting for the one that will save you without effort. Here's the truth that hurts. That moment is never coming because it's already here. The moment to act is now, with imperfect circumstances, with limited resources, with fear fully present, not after something changes. Now, exactly as things are. And if that truth terrifies you, good, it should. Because it means you no longer have the excuse of waiting. You no longer have the comfort of believing that once circumstances improve, then you'll act. Circumstances will never improve enough. There will always be a reason to wait a little longer. And if you wait, you will die waiting, with your life unlived, your dreams unpursued, your potential unrealized. Not because you lacked opportunity, but because you had it 1,000 times, and each time you chose to wait for a better one. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that should shake you awake. Do not wait for Plato's Republic. Be satisfied with even the smallest progress, and treat the outcome of it as no small thing. Translation: stop waiting for perfect conditions. Act now with what you have, even if it's imperfect, because the small imperfect step you take today is infinitely more valuable than the perfect step you'll never take. The practice that exposes whether you're waiting or acting is brutal. Identify the one action you know you need to take but have been postponing. That conversation, that decision, that change, that risk. Now ask yourself honestly, what am I waiting to change before I act? And when you identify what you're waiting for, recognize the truth. That external change will never be enough. Because what you actually need isn't an external change. It's the internal shift from waiting to acting. And that shift can only be made by you. No one can do it for you. Not even you can do it if you keep waiting. You can only do it by acting now, with fear present. with imperfect conditions, with limited resources. That imperfect action in the present is exactly what Epictetus practiced in slavery. He didn't wait for perfect freedom. He practiced mental freedom immediately, in the most restrictive circumstances imaginable. And that practice is exactly what eventually made him one of the most influential philosophers in history. Not because he waited for the perfect moment, but because he acted in the imperfect moment he had. You have that same moment right now. Imperfect, uncomfortable, terrifying. But it's your moment, and if you let it pass while waiting for a better one, you'll eventually realize devastatingly that every future moment would have been just as imperfect. And you will have wasted the only moment you ever truly had. This one. Seneca closed on this truth. It is not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. Your time is running out. Not someday. Right now, while you read this, while you process it, while you decide whether you'll act or keep waiting, and the decision you make in this moment defines your future completely. Wait longer or act now. Both have consequences, but only one sets you free. Second Stoic teaching. Your excuses are more creative than your solutions. There is one skill at which you are exceptionally talented, not the one you brag about, not the one you put on your resume. It's your ability to manufacture excuses so convincing that even you believe them. I don't have time. I don't have the resources. It's not the right moment. My circumstances won't allow it. Each excuse is perfectly constructed, logically defensible, emotionally persuasive, and all of them are carefully designed to protect you from facing the truth. You have enough time, enough resources, and sufficient circumstances to act, but you chose not to. Marcus Aurelius ruled the largest empire the known world had ever seen. He faced constant wars at the borders, plagues that killed thousands, political betrayals, conspiracies, crisis after crisis with no end. And every night, no matter how exhausted he was, he wrote. He wrote his philosophical meditations. He reflected on Stoic principles. He worked on his character. Not because he had extra time, but because he decided it was important enough to create time by eliminating everything that wasn't essential. He didn't have the excuse, "I don't have time." He had less time than you. He didn't have the excuse, "I'm too tired." He was more exhausted than you. He didn't have the excuse, "I have too many responsibilities." He had more responsibility than you ever will. But he didn't look for excuses. He looked for solutions. And the difference between looking for excuses and looking for solutions is exactly the difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one. You say you don't have time, but you have time for social media, for series, for complaining, for activities that don't move you even 1 millimeter closer to who you want to become. It's not that you don't have time. It's that you've decided other things matter more than your growth. And that decision is valid. You're allowed to make it. But then don't pretend the problem is lack of time. The problem is your priorities. Seneca observed this in the people of Rome who lived lives of perpetual excuses. It is not that life is short, but that we waste much of it. Life is long enough if you know how to use it. But you don't use it well because your mind prefers justifying inaction over confronting real work. Because justifying is comfortable. Working is uncomfortable. And you've trained your mind for years to choose comfort over growth. So when the moment to act arrives, your mind automatically searches for the most convenient excuse. and it finds one. Every time. Because excuses are infinite. You can always create a new one when the old one stops working. But solutions require real creativity, brutal honesty, uncomfortable action. So, your comfort-trained mind avoids them. Epictetus taught his students something precise about excuses. Don't say "I can't." Say, "I haven't decided it's important enough to find a way." That reframing destroys the excuse instantly, because it reveals the truth. You can, you just haven't wanted it badly enough to pay the price. And that choice is yours. No one can judge you for it. But then don't hide behind "I can't" when the truth is, "I don't want it enough." The brutal honesty is this: you have exactly what you prioritize having. If you don't have time, it's because you prioritized other things over what you claim to want. If you don't have resources, it's because you weren't creative enough to find or create them. If it's not the right moment, it's because you're waiting for a moment that will never come, instead of acting in the moment you actually have. Marcus Aurelius also recognized that excuses often disguise themselves as rational thinking. How easy it is to dismiss and wipe away any disturbing or inappropriate impression, and immediately be in complete calm. Translation: it's easy to rationalize any excuse as reasonable when you want to avoid action. But that ease is exactly the trap, because the easier it is to fabricate excuses, the more often you'll fabricate them. And the more often you fabricate them, the less often you'll act, until one day your entire life is a collection of brilliantly constructed excuses and zero real results. The practice that exposes whether you're in excuse mode or solution mode is simple. Identify your most common excuse for not acting. Now find one person who has that same limitation and is still achieving what you want to achieve. No time? Find someone with less time who's doing it. No resources? Find someone with fewer resources who's doing it. No experience? Find someone who started with none and built it along the way. That person exists, always. And their existence completely destroys your excuse, because it reveals the obstacle isn't external, it's internal. It's not that you can't, it's that you haven't decided it matters enough. Seneca closed on this with a devastating instruction: show that you deserve freedom through your actions, not through your complaints. Complaints reveal slavery. Actions reveal freedom. Every time you manufacture an excuse, you bind yourself more tightly to your circumstances. Every time you find a solution, you free yourself a little more. And the difference between the two is simply where you aim your creativity: at defending why you can't, or at discovering how you can. Both require creativity, but only one takes you where you actually want to go. Your mind is creative enough to find solutions. It has proven that countless times in other areas of your life. The problem isn't lack of creativity, it's misusing it. You're using it to manufacture excuses instead of solutions. And as long as your excuses remain more creative than your solutions, you will stay exactly where you are. Not because you can't move, but because you've decided it's more comfortable to stay still and justify why you do. Third Stoic teaching: the comfort you protect so fiercely is the prison that destroys you the most. There is something you defend more fiercely than your dignity, your time, or your freedom: your comfort. Every decision you make passes through the same filter. Will this keep me comfortable, or will it make me uncomfortable? And systematically, You choose comfort. Every time. No exceptions. You choose the job that pays the bills but drains you, because changing would be uncomfortable. You choose relationships that exhaust you but feel familiar, because ending them would be uncomfortable. You choose destructive habits that keep you stuck, because changing them would be uncomfortable. And every choice of comfort over growth adds another bar to the cage that keeps you imprisoned. Seneca, who lived at the peak of Roman luxury, wrote something that should terrify you. An easy life makes weak men, and weak men create hard times. He wasn't being dramatic. He was describing exactly what he observed in Rome. Entire generations raised in comfort who collapsed at the first real challenge. People who had everything except the strength of character required to sustain what they had. And eventually, that weakness born of comfort destroyed the most powerful empire in the world. Not external enemies, internal weakness, cultivated over generations of choosing comfort over strength. You are doing the exact same thing with your life. Every time you choose comfort over what is right, you weaken the character you need to become who you want to be. Every time you avoid the hard conversation, the uncomfortable decision, the necessary change, you build a weaker version of yourself. And one day you will wake up trapped in a life you barely recognize, surrounded by circumstances you never consciously chose, living an existence you built brick by choosing comfort over freedom. And you won't remember exactly when you lost your freedom, because it was gradual. One comfortable choice at a time, one avoided discomfort after another, until the cage was complete and you could no longer see the bars, because they had always been there. Marcus Aurelius practiced something radical to prevent exactly this fate. He deliberately chose discomfort when comfort was available. As emperor, he could have slept in the most luxurious beds. He chose simple ones. He could have indulged in extravagant feasts. He chose modest meals. He could have delegated difficult responsibilities to avoid strain. He chose to face them himself, not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he understood something critical. Constant comfort weakens, voluntary discomfort strengthens, and he needed strength, not comfort, to fulfill his duty as a philosopher-emperor. He wrote something precise about this. When you rise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Then face the day with strength, not with the pursuit of pleasure. Foes. Notice the distinction. Face the day with strength, not with the pursuit of pleasure. Most people face the day trying to maximize pleasure and minimize discomfort. And that pursuit is exactly what weakens them over time, until they can no longer face anything difficult at all. Epictetus taught his students something specific about comfort. Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well. This sounds like resignation, but it is the opposite. It is freedom from the constant need to control everything in order to stay comfortable. Because when you need everything to be comfortable in order to be okay, you live in perpetual anxiety. Any discomfort becomes a crisis. Any challenge becomes a threat. Any change becomes terrifying. And you spend your entire life trying to control the uncontrollable, just to preserve the illusion of constant comfort. But when you accept discomfort as a natural part of life, when you stop resisting it and start moving through it, you become free. You no longer need everything to be comfortable to be okay. You can be okay, even when things are uncomfortable. And that capacity is exactly the difference between freedom and prison. Freedom is being okay, regardless of circumstances. Prison is needing specific circumstances to be okay. And the more fiercely you protect your comfort, the more imprisoned you become by it. The practice that reveals whether you are a prisoner of comfort is itself uncomfortable. Identify the 3 areas of your life where you know change is necessary, but you've been avoiding it because it would be uncomfortable. Ending a relationship that no longer serves you. Changing jobs even though it scares you. Confronting a destructive habit even though it's difficult. Now, ask yourself honestly, how long have you been avoiding these changes? A month? A year? 5 years? A decade? And recognize the brutal truth. Every day you delay these changes is another day spent in a prison you built yourself. Not because circumstances trap you, but because your attachment to comfort keeps you avoiding what would free you. Seneca also warned against confusing comfort with happiness. Happiness is not having what you want. It is wanting what you have and being willing to let go of what no longer serves you. Most people confuse the two. They believe they will be happy once they achieve enough comfort. But happiness built on comfort is fragile. It disappears the moment comfort disappears, and comfort always disappears eventually. Because life is inherently uncomfortable. So if your happiness depends on constant comfort, you will never be truly happy. You will only be temporarily comfortable between periods of discomfort that break you. But if you build happiness on the ability to be okay, even in discomfort, you become unbreakable. Circumstances can change, comfort can vanish, challenges can arise, and you will still be okay. Not because you ignore discomfort, but because you develop the strength to move through it. Marcus Aurelius summarized this with devastating clarity. Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. This is the complete inversion of the comfort mindset. Most people spend their lives trying to make everything easier. The Stoic spends his life becoming stronger, so difficulty becomes irrelevant. And only the second path leads to real freedom, because life will never be easy enough. There will always be discomfort. There will always be challenges. But you can become strong enough. You can develop the capacity to move through any discomfort. And when you do, when you finally stop desperately protecting your comfort, you discover something liberating. The discomfort you feared was never as terrible as you imagined. And the strength you gained by moving through it is worth infinitely more than the comfort you sacrificed. Seneca closed on this with a final truth. He who fears suffering already suffers from what he fears. While you protect your comfort, while you avoid necessary discomfort, you are already suffering. You suffer the anxiety of keeping everything controlled. You suffer the restriction of avoiding anything uncomfortable. You suffer the smallness of a life designed to minimize risk. And that suffering is worse than the discomfort you avoid, because it is suffering without purpose, without growth, without liberation. The discomfort you avoid would be temporary, purposeful, and freeing. The comfort you protect so fiercely is the prison that destroys you the most. And the sooner you recognize this, the sooner you can begin freeing yourself by deliberately choosing the discomfort that strengthens you over the comfort that weakens you. Fourth Stoic teaching: you're not tired, you're bored of doing nothing that matters. There is a lie you keep telling yourself. I'm exhausted. I have no energy. I need to rest. And it's true that you feel that way. The exhaustion feels real. but the cause is not what you think. You're not tired because you work too much. You're tired because you haven't worked on anything that matters. You're not exhausted from excess effort. You're exhausted from a lack of purpose. The Stoics understood something modern psychology is only now rediscovering. True exhaustion comes from the absence of meaning, not from hard work. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, commanded armies, handled constant political crises, and still found the energy every night to write philosophy. Not because he had unlimited energy, but because his work had meaning. When you work on something that truly matters, when your effort is aligned with your purpose, work energizes you instead of draining you. But when you spend your days doing things that don't matter, when your effort is wasted on meaningless activity, you are completely depleted. And, at the end of the day, you feel exhausted without having accomplished anything of value. Because your body may be resting on the couch, but your soul is starving. Seneca observed this in people in Rome who lived lives of apparent leisure but real exhaustion. They busy themselves with 1,000 activities, yet accomplish nothing. And at the end of the day, they are more tired than those who labored at something meaningful. That is exactly your situation. You spend the day busy, meetings that don't matter, tasks that lead nowhere, distractions that consume time without creating value. And by night, you are completely drained. Not because you worked too hard, but because your soul knows you wasted another full day without doing anything that truly mattered. And that loss, that unconscious recognition that another day passed without purpose, is exactly what exhausts you. Epictetus taught something precise about this. Work that aligns with your nature strengthens you. Work that contradicts your nature weakens you. Your nature, in Stoic terms, is your capacity to contribute something meaningful. When you contribute, when you create, when you build something that matters, you are aligned with your nature. And that alignment gives you energy. But when you waste time on the trivial, when you avoid what matters out of fear, when you fill your days with meaningless activity, you move against your nature. And that inner contradiction drains you more than any hard labor ever could. The exercise that reveals whether you are truly tired or simply bored of doing nothing important is simple. Think about the last time you worked intensely on something that genuinely mattered to you, a project you cared about, a goal you were pursuing, a creation that called you. How did you feel while working on it? How did you feel afterward? Most likely, you felt alive, energized, fully present, not because it was easy, but because it mattered. Now compare that to how you feel after a typical day now. Drained, empty, exhausted, without having accomplished anything meaningful. The difference isn't the amount of work. It's the meaning of the work. Marcus Aurelius understood that purpose is the antidote to exhaustion. When you love what you do, when it serves something greater than yourself, you never lack the energy to do it. Not because love removes effort, but because love transforms effort into energy. Work without purpose drains you. Work with purpose feeds you. And the difference lies not in the work itself, but in how you experience it. Seneca warned specifically against confusing rest with the solution to purposeless exhaustion. Rest does not restore the one who is tired of doing nothing meaningful. It only gives him more time to feel the emptiness. That is exactly the trap you fall into every weekend. You arrive exhausted from meaningless work. You rest all weekend, and on Monday you return just as tired, or even more so. Not because rest failed, but because rest was never the solution. The problem was not a lack of rest. It was a lack of purpose. And rest does not create purpose. It only delays the confrontation with its absence. You can rest endlessly, but until you work on something that truly matters, the exhaustion will remain. Because this is not physical fatigue. It is existential exhaustion. The exhaustion of living a life where every day looks like the one before it. Where nothing truly matters. Where your existence creates no meaningful impact. And that kind of exhaustion is not cured by rest. It is cured by purpose. Epictetus closed on this with brutal simplicity. If you feel tired for no clear reason, ask yourself, what am I doing that truly matters? And if the answer is nothing, there is your reason. That question is devastating in its clarity. What are you doing that truly matters? Not what you do to pay the bills. Not what you do to maintain appearances. Not what you do because others expect it. But what you do that makes you feel alive. That gives meaning to your existence. And if the honest answer is nothing, or very little, that is the source of your exhaustion. You are not tired because you worked too much. You are bored because you haven't worked on anything worth your energy. Marcus Aurelius summarized it with characteristic precision. The human soul degrades when it has no work worthy of it. Your soul needs meaningful work just as your body needs food. And when you starve it, when you feed it only trivial activity, it degrades. Not suddenly, gradually, one meaningless day after another, one empty week after another, one hollow year after another, until one day you wake up completely exhausted without ever having truly lived. Because you spent your life busy with the trivial while avoiding the meaningful, Seneca closed with a liberating truth. Give your soul the work it deserves, and you will never lack energy for it. For the soul is nourished by meaning, not by rest. That is the cure for the chronic exhaustion you feel. Not more rest, more meaning, not less work. Different work. Not avoiding effort, directing effort toward what truly matters. And when you do, when you finally work on something meaningful, you will discover something surprising. You have far more energy than you thought, not because you rested more, but because your effort finally has purpose. And purpose is the fuel your soul needs to function. Without it, no amount of rest will ever be enough. With it, no amount of work will ever feel like too much. Because you are not tired, you are bored of doing nothing that matters. And the cure is not resting more. It is finally beginning to do what truly matters. Fifth Stoic teaching. The people who tell you that you can't do it also couldn't do it. There are voices in your life that constantly tell you that you can't, that your goal is too big, that your dream is unrealistic, that you should settle for something more reasonable. And you listen to those voices. You weigh them. You take them seriously because they sound reasonable. They sound like genuine concern. They sound like experience speaking. But there is something you almost never stop to examine. Who exactly is giving you this advice? Is it someone who achieved what you want to achieve? Is it someone who truly pursued your goal and failed after a genuine effort? Or is it someone who never tried at all and is now projecting their lack of action as wisdom? Epictetus taught something radical about advice. Do not listen to someone who has not walked your path. They are speaking about a land they have never visited. That instruction can sound arrogant, as if you are rejecting all external wisdom. But it isn't rejection of wisdom. It is discernment of sources. Because there is a massive difference between advice from someone who tried and failed and advice from someone who never tried. The first has real experience, hard-earned lessons, a perspective that can save you from mistakes. The second has only fear disguised as caution. And most of the advice you receive comes from the second group. People who tell you that you can't because they couldn't. Or worse, because they never tried, and now need you not to try either in order to validate their own inaction, because watching you succeed would force them to confront something unbearable, that it was possible all along, and they chose not to act. So, unconsciously, subtly, constantly, they try to stop you, not because they hate you, but because your success would be a brutal mirror of their failure. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that should completely change who you listen to. Constantly ask yourself, does this person live in a way I admire? If not, why would I accept their advice on how to live? That single question eliminates 90% of the advice you receive. Because most people who advise you do not live lives you admire. They haven't achieved what you want to achieve. They haven't built what you want to build. They haven't reached what you want to reach. So why would you grant them authority over your direction? Not because they are bad people, but because they simply lack relevant experience. Seneca observed the same pattern in Rome. Those who never sailed warn you about storms. Those who never fought instruct you about battle. And those who never risked anything preach endlessly about safety. And you listen as if they possess wisdom, when all they really have is fear without experience. The exercise that reveals who you should listen to is brutally simple. List the 5 people whose advice most influences your decisions. Now, ask yourself for each one, has this person achieved what I want to achieve? If the answer is no, their advice on how to achieve it is irrelevant, not because they lack value as human beings, but because they have never navigated the territory you are trying to enter. They may have good intentions. They may genuinely care about you. But good intentions without relevant experience produce advice that keeps you safe, not advice that makes you great. Epictetus warned specifically about confusing concern with wisdom. Many will warn you about the risks. Few will guide you on how to navigate those risks. Listen only to the second group. Warnings are easy. Anyone can point out what might go wrong. Guidance requires experience. It requires having walked that path and survived it. Only those people can offer wisdom, not projected fear. Marcus Aurelius also understood that rejecting bad advice is not arrogance. It is not arrogance to reject advice from someone who has not walked your path. It is wisdom to protect your direction from those who do not know where it leads. That protection of your direction is critical, because if you listen to everyone, especially those who never tried, you will end up trying nothing. There will always be someone with a reason why you shouldn't. Always someone pointing out the risks. Always someone projecting their own fear as prudent advice. And if you give them authority over your direction, you will end up exactly where they are, safe, and having never attempted anything meaningful. Seneca closed on this with a decisive distinction. Seek advice from those who have succeeded where you wish to succeed. Seek warnings from those who truly tried and failed, but completely ignore those who never tried and now preach impossibility. That hierarchy of sources is exactly what you must apply. The most valuable advice comes from those who achieved what you want. Listen to them deeply. The second most valuable comes from those who genuinely tried and failed. Their lessons can save you years. But completely worthless is the advice of those who never tried and now insist it cannot be done, because they are not speaking from experience. They are speaking from fear. And fear without experience is the worst possible guide for any meaningful decision. Epictetus summarized it with a final instruction. When someone tells you that you cannot, ask yourself, did this person truly try? If not, their opinion is irrelevant. That single question silences most of the voices that hold you back, because most people who tell you that you can't never truly tried. They tried halfway. They tried without commitment. Or they never tried at all. And now they present their lack of results as proof of impossibility. But the only real evidence of impossibility is when someone gives everything they have for as long as required, and it still fails. That person is rare, because most people quit long before reaching that point. So when someone tells you that you can't, what they usually mean is, I couldn't, because I wasn't willing to pay the full price. That statement says nothing about your potential. It only reveals something about theirs. Marcus Aurelius closed with a liberating truth. The crowd will tell you it is impossible because for the crowd, it is. But you are not the crowd. And what is impossible for those who do not try is entirely possible for those who commit fully. That difference between the crowd and the committed is exactly where you must stand. The crowd will tell you that you can't, because for them, it's true they are unwilling to do what is required. But their reality is not your reality. Their limitations are not your limitations. And their failure to try does not predict your outcome if you truly commit. So stop giving weight to advice from people whose lives you do not want to live. Stop listening to those who call something impossible when they never tried. Stop allowing those who chose safety over growth to define what is possible for you. Because the people who tell you that you can't do it also couldn't do it. And their inability says nothing about yours. It only proves that they chose to quit, where you still have the option to continue. Sixth Stoic teaching. You are living for the approval of people you don't even respect. There is a devastating contradiction in the way you live your life. You modify your decisions to impress people whose lives you wouldn't want to live, even if they were handed to you. You censor your opinions to fit in with people whose opinions you don't actually value. You sacrifice your authenticity to gain the approval of people whose approval should not matter to you at all. And while you do all of this, you ignore your own voice, the only voice that should truly guide you, because you fear something more than mediocrity. You fear rejection. Marcus Aurelius, who could have lived seeking the approval of senators, generals, and the Roman people, wrote something that completely destroys that need. The opinion of others is air carried by the wind. Why give it more weight than the wind itself? He was not being dismissive of people. He was being precise about the value of their opinions. Opinions change. Today they approve of you. Tomorrow they criticize you. Today you are the hero. Tomorrow the villain. And if you build your identity on that shifting ground of external approval, you will live in perpetual anxiety, constantly monitoring what others think, constantly adjusting to maintain their approval, constantly fearing the moment that approval is withdrawn. That is not freedom. It is voluntary slavery. Epictetus, who knew real slavery, taught something radical about mental bondage. No man is free who is not master of himself. And you are not master of yourself if you need the approval of others in order to feel at peace with who you are. That dependence on external approval is the strongest chain keeping you imprisoned. Not external circumstances, not lack of resources, not bad luck. Your imprisonment comes from your pathological need for others to validate your decisions before you can feel good about them. And as long as you maintain that need, you remain chained, no matter how much external freedom you have. The exercise that reveals how bound you are to external approval is uncomfortable. Think about the last important decision you made. Now ask yourself honestly, how much of that decision was based on what you truly wanted, and how much was based on what others would approve of? Did you choose that career because it calls to you, or because it impresses? Do you stay in that relationship because it nourishes you, or because it looks good? Do you pursue that goal because it matters to you, or because others would validate it? And if you discover that many of your decisions are contaminated by the need for approval, recognize the brutal truth. You are not living your life. You are living the life you believe others would approve of. And those people whose approval you seek so desperately, do you truly respect the way they live? Would you trade places with them? Do you admire their decisions, their values, their results? Probably not. And yet you give them power over your choices. You give them authority over your direction. You give them control over your peace of mind. Seneca observed this constantly among the Roman elite. They spend their lives trying to impress people they do not respect, with achievements they do not genuinely value. That is exactly the trap you are in. You work on things you don't care about to impress people you don't respect, with outcomes you don't truly value. And you call that success, when in reality it is the perfect definition of failure. Because real success is living according to your own values, not according to the values others would approve of. Marcus Aurelius also recognized that the pursuit of approval is endless and insatiable. If you seek to please everyone, you will end up pleasing no one, especially yourself. No matter what you do, someone will criticize it. No matter what you choose, someone will disapprove. So if you tie your peace of mind to universal approval, you will never have peace. There will always be someone dissatisfied, always someone judging, always someone whose approval you failed to earn. And you will chase that missing approval, constantly adjusting, endlessly sacrificing your authenticity on the altar of external validation, until one day you wake up and no longer recognize the person in the mirror, because you built a version of yourself designed to impress others, not an authentic version you actually want to be. Epictetus taught something specific about reclaiming your autonomy. Decide today that the only approval you need is your own, and that you earn it by living according to your principles, not the expectations of others. That decision is terrifying, because it means letting go of the comfort of external validation. It means accepting that some people will disapprove, some will criticize you, some will reject you, and you must be okay with that. You must learn to find your peace internally, not externally. But that is exactly the freedom you are searching for without realizing it. The freedom to live authentically, even when others disapprove. The freedom to be yourself without apology. The freedom to stop performing and start living. Seneca also warned about the cost of living for approval. He who lives for the approval of others dies 1,000 deaths. Each disapproval kills a part of him. But he who lives by his own principles dies only once, and that death does not steal his life while he lives. That is the critical difference between living for external approval and living for internal integrity. The first dies constantly. Each criticism is a small death. Each rejection wounds the identity. The second lives fully, because its identity is rooted in principles, not opinions. And principles remain stable regardless of who approves or disapproves. Marcus Aurelius practiced this deliberately as emperor. He made decisions he knew would be unpopular. He applied principles he knew would provoke criticism, and he did so anyway. Not because he enjoyed disapproval, but because his commitment to principles was stronger than his need for approval. He wrote something precise about this process. Do what is right. The rest is irrelevant. Cold, heat, fatigue, public opinion, death, all are equally insignificant compared to doing what is right. Notice the list. Public opinion stands alongside cold, heat, and sleep. Not because it is bad, but because it is irrelevant when compared to doing what is right. And when you internalize that perspective, when the opinion of others becomes as insignificant as the weather, you become completely free. You stop shaping your behavior to gain approval. You start expressing your character regardless of the external response. Epictetus closed with a liberating instruction. If you seek approval, you will seek it forever. But if you seek integrity, you will find it immediately in every decision that aligns your actions with your values. That shift from approval to integrity is exactly what you must make. Stop asking, what will others approve of? Start asking, what aligns with my values? Stop adjusting yourself to fit in. Start expressing your principles authentically. Stop living for external validation. Start living for internal integrity. And when you do, you will discover something paradoxical. The people who truly matter will respect you more, not because you conform, but because you are finally authentic. And the people who respect you less, those who only approved of you when you conformed, will reveal that their approval was never worth anything to begin with, because it was conditional on the sacrifice of your authenticity, and that is not approval. It is control disguised as validation. Seneca spoke the final truth on this. The respect of one's own self is worth more than the approval of 1,000 who do not truly know you. That self-respect comes only from living authentically, from doing what is right even when others disapprove, from being faithful to your principles even when it is unpopular. And when you build it, when you finally prioritize integrity over approval, you break the strongest chain that was keeping you imprisoned. You no longer live for the approval of people you don't even respect. You live for the integrity that finally allows you to respect yourself, and that self-respect is worth infinitely more than any external approval you could ever receive. Seventh Stoic teaching: your greatest enemy is not outside you, it's between your ears. There is a comforting lie you tell yourself when things don't work out. It's the circumstances. It's the lack of opportunities. It's because other people are holding me back. All of these explanations have one thing in common. They place the problem outside of you. Because if the problem is outside, then you don't have to change. You don't have to confront anything. You don't have to grow. You just have to wait for circumstances to improve. And while you wait, you get to feel like a victim instead of taking responsibility. But Seneca destroyed that lie 2,000 years ago. We are our own tyrants. We enslave ourselves with our own thoughts more effectively than any external master ever could. Well, free. That truth is devastating because it completely eliminates your favorite excuse. It is not the world that is stopping you. It is you. It is not the circumstances that limit you. It is your beliefs about those circumstances. It is not other people preventing you from moving forward. It is your inner dialogue that paralyzes you before you even try. Marcus Aurelius, who constantly faced real external threats, recognized that the internal threat was always greater. You have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But most people reverse that relationship. They try to control external events while completely ignoring their inner mind. And, as a result, they live in constant frustration. Because external events are mostly outside your control, but your mind is entirely within your control. Yet it feels easier to blame the outside than to take responsibility for the inside. Because taking responsibility means admitting that if things aren't working, it's probably because your thoughts, your beliefs, your mental patterns are sabotaging you. And that admission requires brutal humility, the exercise that reveals how much you are sabotaging yourself is uncomfortable. List the 3 areas of your life where you feel the most frustration due to lack of progress. Now, for each one, ask yourself honestly, what is the inner dialogue I have about this area? What do I tell myself about my abilities? What do I believe about my chances? What do I assume about the outcome before I even try? If you are brutally honest, you will discover that your inner dialogue is full of self-imposed limitations. I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. I'll probably fail anyway. Others are more capable than me. Each of those thoughts is sabotage. They are not objective evaluations of reality. They are self-fulfilling prophecies that guarantee the very outcome they predict. Because when you believe you will fail, you don't give full effort. When you don't give full effort, you fail. And when you fail, you confirm your original belief. The cycle reinforces itself until you no longer question whether the belief is true. You simply accept it as reality. Epictetus taught something radical about this cycle. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about things, and our opinions are entirely within our control. That distinction between the thing and your opinion about the thing is critical. The thing itself is neutral. Your opinion about it determines how you experience it. If you believe a challenge is impossible, it becomes impossible not because it objectively is, but because your belief prevents you from giving the effort that would make it possible. But if you believe a challenge is difficult yet possible, it becomes exactly that, and you give the corresponding effort. The difference is not in the challenge, it is in your mind. Seneca also observed how people destroy themselves with their own thoughts. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most of our fears never materialize, but the suffering of anticipating them is entirely real. That is exactly your experience. You spend more time suffering over what could go wrong than dealing with what actually goes wrong. You spend more energy worrying about imaginary failures than recovering from real ones. And all of that suffering is self-inflicted. It does not come from circumstances. It comes from how you think about circumstances. Marcus Aurelius practiced something specific to combat this inner sabotage. Every time he noticed a limiting thought, he questioned it directly. Is this thought objectively true? Or is it my interpretation? Is this fear based on real evidence or on imagination? Is this limitation external, or am I imposing it on myself? And most of the time, he discovered that the enemy was not outside, it was between his ears. He wrote something specific about this process. Our life is what our thoughts make it. If you think in terms of disaster, you will live in disaster. If you think in terms of possibility, you will live in possibility. That is the truth you must fully internalize. Your life is not determined by your circumstances. It is determined by how you think about your circumstances. And as long as your thinking is filled with limitations, fears, and predictions of failure, your circumstances will reflect exactly that. Not because the circumstances are bad, but because your thoughts turn them into insurmountable obstacles instead of navigable challenges. Epictetus closed with a practical instruction. Examine your impressions. Ask yourself, is this thought true, or is it only my opinion? And if it is only your opinion, why would you choose an opinion that weakens you instead of one that strengthens you? That question is revolutionary in its simplicity. If you are going to have an opinion about a situation, and that opinion is under your control, why choose the one that paralyzes you? Why choose to believe you are incapable when you could choose to believe you are capable but need development? Why choose to believe a challenge is impossible when you could choose to believe it is difficult but worth attempting? The honest answer is this: because the limiting belief protects you from the fear of failure. If you believe you are incapable, then not trying feels justified. It is not cowardice, it is realism. But that realism is simply fear disguised as objectivity. And as long as you maintain it, as long as you defend your self-imposed limitations as if they were objective truths, you will remain exactly where you are. Seneca summarized this with final clarity. Do not say, I can't. Say, I chose to believe I can't, and that belief prevents me from trying. Because the second statement is honest, and it gives you back the power to choose differently. That power to choose differently is exactly what you need to reclaim. Stop defending your limitations as if they were immutable realities. Stop sabotaging yourself with thoughts that guarantee the very failure you fear. Stop being your own tyrant with an inner dialogue that destroys you more effectively than any external enemy ever could. Because your greatest enemy is not outside you, it is between your ears. And as long as you refuse to recognize it, as long as you keep searching for external enemies to blame, that internal enemy will keep winning every battle without you ever realizing that you are fighting against yourself. 8th Stoic teaching. The pain you avoid today becomes the regret you carry tomorrow. There is a simple but devastating math behind how you are living your life. Every difficult conversation you postpone. Every uncomfortable decision you avoid. Every necessary change you delay. It is all accumulating. It does not disappear because you ignore it. It compounds like emotional debt that one day you will be forced to pay. And when that day comes, you will discover that the interest is brutal. The Stoics did not just understand this. They practiced the opposite deliberately. Seneca taught something modern culture completely rejects. Practice voluntary discomfort to avoid involuntary suffering. The small pain you choose now prevents massive suffering later. That practice sounds masochistic, but it is deeply wise, because it rests on a critical truth. You cannot avoid pain. You can only choose which kind of pain you will experience. The pain of discipline now, or the pain of regret later. The pain of a difficult conversation today, or the pain of a destroyed relationship tomorrow, the pain of changing while it is uncomfortable, or the pain of being trapped when it is too late. Both hurt. But only one sets you free. Marcus Aurelius practiced this specifically every morning. He rose before dawn, even though he could have remained in the most comfortable imperial bed in the world. He studied philosophy, even though he could have chosen entertainment. He faced his most difficult responsibilities first, even though he could have postponed them. not because he enjoyed pain, but because he understood something most people never learn. The pain you choose to face early is always smaller than the pain that forces itself upon you later. He wrote something specific about this. At dawn, when you struggle to get out of bed, keep this thought at hand. I rise to do the work of a human being. Should I complain if I am going to do what I exist for? Or was I born to lie under blankets and stay warm? That question directly confronts the temptation to avoid present pain. Yes, staying in bed is more comfortable now, but that comfort comes with a price you will pay later. The price of missed opportunities, of unrealized potential, of a life lived on autopilot, systematically avoiding everything that requires effort. And that price is infinitely more painful than the simple act of getting up when it is uncomfortable. Epictetus also taught his students to deliberately seek voluntary discomfort. Set aside some days to live with very little. Eat the simplest food. Wear the roughest clothes. Then ask yourself, is this what I was so afraid of? He was not promoting poverty. He was training resilience. Because when you practice pain voluntarily, when you deliberately expose yourself to discomfort you could avoid, something transformative happens. You discover that the pain you feared is not as devastating as you imagined. And that realization destroys the power that fear of pain had over your decisions. You no longer avoid difficult conversations because you fear discomfort. You have endured worse and survived. You no longer postpone uncomfortable decisions because you fear unease. You have practiced deeper discomfort and passed through it. You no longer delay necessary changes because you fear the unknown. You have trained yourself to navigate the unknown deliberately. The exercise that reveals how much emotional debt you are accumulating is brutal. Make a list of every conversation you know you need to have, but have been postponing. Add every decision you know you must make, but have been avoiding. Finally, add every change you know you need to make, but keep delaying. Look at that list. That is your accumulated emotional debt. And every day that passes without addressing those things, that debt grows. It does not stay the same, it grows. Because the longer you delay the difficult conversation, the more the relationship deteriorates, and the harder the conversation becomes. The longer you avoid the uncomfortable decision, the fewer your options become, and the more painful the decision grows. The longer you delay the necessary change, the more adapted you become to your current situation, and the more terrifying and costly the change becomes. You are not avoiding pain. You are amplifying it through delay. Seneca observed this constantly in Rome. People spend years avoiding conversations that take 5 minutes. And when they finally have them, they discover that 5 years of anxiety could have been avoided with 5 minutes of courage. That is exactly your situation in multiple areas of your life. Years of anxiety over something that requires minutes of courage. Years of discomfort over a situation that requires hours of focused effort to change. Years of being trapped in something that requires days of concentrated pain to escape. And as you continue to avoid, as you continue to postpone, the debt grows until one day it is no longer optional. One day, circumstances force you to face what you could have faced voluntarily long ago. And you discover devastatingly that the price of being forced is exponentially higher than the price of choosing to act early. Marcus Aurelius also recognized that postponing pain does not eliminate it, it only turns it into regret. From each day that passes, a portion of life is taken away. What remains grows smaller every day. And if you continue postponing real living, you will die having existed, but not lived. That regret, The regret of never having truly lived is the final cost of constantly avoiding present pain. Because truly living requires pain. It requires difficult conversations. It requires uncomfortable decisions. It requires terrifying changes. And if you spend your life systematically avoiding all of that, the end will come without you having truly lived. You will have existed inside a comfort zone that slowly became a prison. Epictetus closed on this with a direct instruction. What you postpone facing today becomes the weight you carry tomorrow. And each day you carry it unresolved, it grows heavier until it eventually crushes you. That is the brutal math of procrastination. You are not lightening your load by avoiding pain. You are increasing it. Each day you delay that conversation, you carry the weight of not having had it. Each day you avoid that decision, you carry the weight of living in limbo. Each day you delay that change, you carry the weight of being trapped, and all of those weights eventually become unbearable. Seneca summarized this with final clarity that should move you to act immediately. The pain of discipline is light compared to the pain of regret. Choose wisely which one you will carry. That choice is in front of you constantly. Every moment when you could have the difficult conversation or postpone it. Every moment when you could make the uncomfortable decision or avoid it. Every moment when you could begin the necessary change or delay it. And in each of those moments, you are choosing between two kinds of pain. The present pain of action or the future pain of regret. Stoic wisdom is clear. Choose the present pain, because it is always smaller. The pain of a difficult conversation lasts minutes. The pain of a ruined relationship lasts years. The pain of an uncomfortable decision lasts days. The pain of missed opportunities lasts decades. The pain of necessary change lasts months. The pain of being trapped in what no longer serves you lasts a lifetime. Marcus Aurelius lived this until his final day. He faced every difficult responsibility immediately. He had every uncomfortable conversation when it was necessary. He made every hard decision without delay, not because he felt no pain, but because he preferred the sharp, temporary pain of action over the dull, permanent pain of regret. And he died knowing he had lived fully, with no emotional debt, no unfinished conversations, no avoided decisions, no postponed changes. He died free from the regret that destroys those who spend their lives avoiding present pain, only to discover they accumulated a far greater pain in the future. That freedom is available to you, but only if you stop avoiding. Only if you face today what you have been postponing. Only if you pay the price of present pain to avoid the devastating cost of future regret. Because the pain you avoid today will become the regret you carry tomorrow. And that regret is infinitely heavier than any pain you are avoiding right now. Ninth Stoic teaching. You don't have as much time as you think, and you're wasting it as if you were immortal. There is an illusion that keeps most people trapped in perpetual mediocrity. The illusion that you have time. Time to start later. Time to change eventually. Time to really live once the circumstances are perfect. And while you hold on to that illusion, while you behave as if decades are guaranteed, you waste the only time you truly have, now. Marcus Aurelius, who lived with the constant reality of death as an emperor in wartime, reflected on this daily. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. He wasn't being morbid. He was being brutally realistic. You could die today. tomorrow, next week. And if you died today, what would remain of your life? What would you have truly accomplished? What impact would you have created? Or would you die with an endless list of things you meant to do, but never did because there was time? This awareness of mortality is not depression, it is clarity. Clarity about what actually matters versus what merely consumes time. Clarity about how much you are wasting versus how much you are investing in what is meaningful. Clarity about the real urgency of living now instead of endlessly preparing to live later. Seneca wrote an entire essay on this that should completely change how you value your time. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Life is long enough if you know how to use it, but it slips away quickly when it is squandered on empty pleasures and purposeless activity. That accusation is direct. You do not lack time. You waste it. You waste it on social media that adds nothing but distraction. You waste it worrying about things that will never happen. You waste it on activities that consume hours but create no value. You waste it waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. And while you waste it, while you treat time as if it were infinite, your life slips through your fingers. One day at a time. 1 week after another. 1 year following the next. Until one day you wake up and realize that decades have passed and you still haven't truly begun to live. You still haven't pursued the goal you always said you would chase when there was time. You still haven't made the change you always said you would make when the moment was right. You still haven't lived the life you always said you would live eventually, and now time is gone, or disappearing much faster than you want to admit. The exercise that reveals how much you are wasting is devastating. Calculate how many conscious hours you have in an average week. Roughly 112 if you sleep 8 hours a night. Now subtract the hours spent working, eating, maintaining hygiene, and handling basic necessities. You are probably left with around 40 discretionary hours. Now ask yourself honestly, how many of those 40 hours last week did you invest in something that truly matters? How many went into real growth? How many into pursuing meaningful goals? How many into creating something of value? And if the honest answer is few or none, recognize the brutal truth. It is not that you lack time, you waste it systematically. Marcus Aurelius also recognized that most people live as if they were immortal. You act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. To be good, in Stoic terms, means to make the best possible use of your time, not to squander it. But most people do the opposite. They live as if they have 1,000 years guaranteed. They postpone what matters because there will be time later. They tolerate mediocrity because I'll change eventually. They avoid what is meaningful because now isn't the right moment. Every one of those choices assumes immortality. It assumes unlimited time later, but you do not have it. No one does. And as long as you keep acting as if you do, you will keep wasting the finite time you actually possess. Epictetus taught something radical about urgency. Do not postpone anything important, for later may never come, and if it does, you may no longer be here. That instruction completely destroys the justification for delay. You cannot postpone what matters, because later is not guaranteed. If something truly matters, it must be done now. Not perfectly. Not when you feel ready. Now imperfectly. With what you have. Because now is the only moment that truly exists. The past is gone. The future may never arrive. All you have is now. And you are wasting that now, waiting for a future moment that may never exist. Seneca also warned specifically about the trap of being busy without doing anything important. You will see that the busiest people are often those who accomplish the least. They fill their time with urgent matters and never make room for what is truly important. That distinction between urgent and important is critical. Urgent things scream for immediate attention: emails, messages, interruptions, minor crises. Important things actually move your life forward. Your meaningful goals, your growth, your most impactful work. Most people live enslaved to the urgent while completely neglecting the important. Because the urgent is easier, it comes with external deadlines and immediate consequences. The important requires self-discipline. It requires saying no to the urgent to create space for what truly matters. Most people lack that discipline, so their days are consumed by urgency, and their lives pass without ever touching significance. Marcus Aurelius practiced something specific to avoid this trap. Each morning, he identified the most important thing he could do that day, not the most urgent, but the most important. And he did it first, before urgency could steal his attention. Because he knew that if he waited to have time for what mattered, he would never have it. The urgent would always consume everything. But if he did the important first, the urgent had to wait. And often, it turned out not to be so urgent after all. He wrote about this practice. At dawn, ask yourself, what must I do today? At dusk, ask yourself, what did I do today that was worth doing? That daily evaluation kept his time aligned with what mattered, instead of wasted on trivialities. And it is exactly the discipline you must adopt if you want to stop wasting your finite life. Epictetus closed on this with final urgency. Live each day as if it were your last. One day you will be right. And if you lived each day this way, you will not die with regret. That perspective completely transforms how you use time. If today were your last day, would you waste hours scrolling aimlessly? Would you postpone an important conversation? Would you avoid meaningful work because it is uncomfortable? Would you tolerate another hour in activities that add nothing to your life? Probably not. You would use every hour with intention. You would do what matters. You would say what needs to be said. You would live fully. The point of mortality awareness is not constant fear. It is appropriate urgency. Clarity about what truly matters. The willingness to do it now, instead of postponing it forever. Seneca summarized this with a final truth that should move you immediately. While you live, while you can, be good. For life is short, and the only true tragedy is wasting it while waiting to live it later. You do not have as much time as you think. In fact, you have far less. And you are wasting it, as if you were immortal, as if decades were guaranteed for you to finally begin living. They are not. No one has that guarantee. And as long as you act as if you do, you will keep wasting the finite time you actually own. Until one day it runs out and you realize, devastatingly, that you spent your life waiting to live instead of actually living. That is the tragedy the Stoics warn you to avoid. Not through fear of death, but through the urgency to live fully now. Because now is all you have, and you are wasting it. Stop wasting it. Start living it. 10th Stoic teaching. The version of you that you could become is dying every day you choose to remain who you are. There are two versions of you that exist at the same time. The current version, the one you know, the one you live as every day, comfortable, familiar, safe, and the potential version, the one you could become, the one that calls to you, terrifying, unknown, exceptional, and every day you choose to remain the first, you kill a little more of the second. Not dramatically, not with one big decision, but gradually, through 1,000 small decisions that choose the familiar over what is possible. Epictetus taught something devastating about this constant choice. Every moment is a choice between two versions of yourself, the one you are and the one you could become. And every moment you choose the first, you weaken the second, until eventually it can no longer emerge. That slow death of potential is exactly what happens to most people. It's not that they consciously decided to be mediocre. It's that they chose comfort 1,000 times in a row, and every choice of comfort was simultaneously a rejection of excellence. Every morning they slept in. Instead of getting up to work on their goals, they killed a little of the disciplined version. Every conversation they avoided instead of having, they killed a little of the courageous version. Every change they postponed instead of making, they killed a little of the transformed version. And after years of these accumulated small deaths, the exceptional version is no longer possible. Not because it was never possible, but because it was systematically killed through the daily choice of comfort over greatness. Marcus Aurelius recognized this and reflected on it directly. You have the power to live as you choose. That power is always there. But most people never use it because it requires letting go of who you are to become who you could be. That letting go is exactly what terrifies people. Because who you are now is known, safe, predictable, but who you could become is unknown, uncertain. It requires passing through the discomfort of transformation. So most people choose to remain with what they know. And in that choice, they kill what they could have been. The exercise that reveals how much of your potential you've already killed is brutal. Think about who you wanted to be 5 years ago. What goals you had, what changes you planned to make, what version of yourself you imagined becoming. Now compare that with who you are today. How close are you to that version you once imagined? Did you make the changes you planned? Did you pursue the goals you set? And if the honest answer is that you're in the same place, or only slightly ahead, recognize the truth. It's not that you didn't have time. It's not that circumstances didn't allow it. It's not that it wasn't possible. It's that you chose comfort over excellence 1,000 times in a row. And in those accumulated choices, you killed the exceptional version you could have become. Seneca observed this constantly in people who reach the end of their lives full of regret. Most people do not live, they merely exist. They preserve a comfortable existence but never transform into who they could have been, and they die with all their potential intact, unexpressed, unrealized. That regret of unrealized potential is exactly what awaits if you continue choosing comfort. Not regret over what you did wrong, but regret over what you never did at all. The version of yourself you could have become but chose not to. The goals you could have achieved but chose not to pursue. The impact you could have created but chose not to attempt. And that regret is infinitely more painful than any temporary failure. Because failure means you tried, you gave your best, you activated your potential even if it didn't work. But the regret of never trying means your potential died inside you without ever being expressed. Epictetus taught his students to live with transformative urgency. Do not postpone becoming who you could be. Every day you delay is a day that version weakens, and eventually you will no longer have the strength to transform. That gradual loss of transformational capacity is real. The longer you remain who you are, the harder it becomes to change. Patterns solidify, habits root deeper, identity crystallizes. What would have required moderate effort at 20 requires heroic effort at 40. Not because you are less capable, but because you've spent 20 additional years reinforcing the very patterns you now need to break. Marcus Aurelius practiced something specific to avoid this crystallization. He regularly asked himself, "Am I living as the person I decided to be, or as the person it is convenient to be?" That distinction between decision and convenience is critical. The person you decided to be requires constant effort. It requires intentional choices. It requires repeatedly rejecting comfort. But the person it is convenient to be requires no effort at all, only following established patterns, doing what is easy, choosing what is comfortable. And most people, without realizing it, choose convenience over decision. Once, then again, then 1,000 times more, until the person they once decided to become is so dead they no longer even remember them. They only remember the convenient version they built through accumulated comfortable choices. Seneca also warned about the trap of eventually. Do not say, "Eventually I will become who I want to be." Eventually is the graveyard where all aspirations die. Either you become that person now through daily choices, or you never become them at all. Eliminating eventually is liberating and terrifying. Liberating because it means you can begin now. You don't need perfect circumstances. Terrifying because it means you have no excuse to wait. If you don't begin now, you are actively choosing to never become that person. And that choice is yours. No one can make it for you. You can continue being who you are. Comfortable, familiar, safe, mediocre. Or you can begin becoming who you could be. Uncomfortable, unknown, risky, exceptional. But you cannot have both. And every day you do not choose the second. The second weakens until it eventually disappears as an option. Epictetus closed with final urgency. The time to become who you want to be is not later. It is now. Because now is the only moment in which you have the power to choose. And if you do not choose now, you are choosing to remain who you are forever. That is the truth you must fully internalize. There is no magical later when transformation becomes easier. There is only now where it is difficult but possible. And if you do not choose transformation now, you are choosing permanent mediocrity. Not because you couldn't change later, but because you won't. Because you will always have the same excuse that later will be a better time. Marcus Aurelius summarized this with final clarity. Stop arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Applied to you. Stop debating who you could become. Become that person. Not later. Not when it's convenient. Not when circumstances are perfect. Now. With all the fear present. With all the discomfort included. With all the obstacles visible. Because the version of you that you could become is dying every day you choose to remain who you are. And if you keep choosing comfort, one day you will wake up and that exceptional version will be completely gone. You will not be able to revive it because you will have spent decades building the exact opposite person. And you will die knowing you could have been exceptional but chose comfort, that you could have transformed but chose to stay the same, that you could have lived fully but chose to merely exist. That knowledge, that final regret, is the price of choosing comfort over potential. Seneca spoke the final truth about this. It is not death that a man should fear, but that he should never begin to live. The version of you that you could become is not waiting in the future. It is dying in the present. Every moment you choose comfort over greatness, you kill it a little more. And if you keep killing it, one day it will be gone completely. But if you begin now, if you choose the discomfort of transformation over the comfort of stagnation, you can revive it. You can become who you always knew you could be, not later. Now, because now is the only moment in which that choice still exists, and every moment you delay is a moment in which that exceptional version weakens, until eventually it can no longer be revived. So, choose. Now, permanent comfort or uncomfortable transformation, familiar mediocrity or unknown excellence, who you are or who you could become. You cannot have both. And every day you do not choose the second, you choose the first by default. Stop choosing by default. Start choosing intentionally to become who you truly want to be, before it is too late to do so. The awakening you can no longer ignore. You have reached the end of these 10 Stoic teachings, and if you have been honest with yourself while listening, something inside you has shifted, not because you heard anything you didn't already know, but because truths you have been avoiding for years were finally named, that no one is coming to save you, not even yourself, if you keep waiting, that your excuses are more creative than your solutions, that the comfort you protect is the prison that is destroying you, that you are not tired, you are bored of doing nothing that truly matters, that the people who tell you that you can't do it also couldn't do it themselves, that you are living for the approval of people you don't even respect, that your greatest enemy is not outside you, but inside your own mind, that the pain you avoid today will become the regret you carry tomorrow, that you do not have as much time as you think, and you are wasting it as if you were immortal, that the version of you you could have become is dying every day you choose to remain who you are. Each of these teachings hurts because it exposes exactly where you have been lying to yourself, where you have justified mediocrity as rational thinking, where you have chosen comfort as if it were wisdom, where you have postponed what matters as if time were infinite. And now, a clear choice stands in front of you. You can return to comforting lies, to carefully constructed excuses, to the familiar comfort that is slowly killing you. That option has an obvious benefit. It requires no change, no discomfort, no confrontation, but it carries a devastating cost. You will waste the rest of your life the same way you have wasted your time until now. And you will reach the end with the crushing regret of knowing you could have lived fully, but chose to exist halfway. Or you can embrace the brutal truths. You can drop the excuses. You can choose transforming discomfort over destructive comfort. That option is terrifying. It demands immediate change. It requires facing the pain you have been avoiding. It requires killing versions of yourself that have existed for years. But it carries a reward that comfort will never know. Living fully, expressing your true potential, and dying knowing you gave everything you had. Marcus Aurelius would remind you one final time. Stop arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. That is the final message of all this. Stop debating. Stop planning. Stop waiting. Be the person you know you are meant to be. Not later. Now. Seneca would remind you, live immediately. Do not postpone, for every day you delay is a day you will never get back. Your time is running out, not eventually, right now. And every moment you spend waiting for the perfect moment is a moment lost forever. Epictetus would remind you, you have the power to change right now. That power has never been absent. You have only chosen not to use it. That power is still there, waiting for you to finally use it, waiting for you to stop making excuses and start transforming, waiting for you to choose the discomfort that frees you over the comfort that chains you. The Stoics lived these truths. They did not preach them from comfort. They practiced them under the hardest circumstances. Marcus Aurelius ruled a collapsing empire. Seneca faced exile and ultimately a forced death. Epictetus survived slavery and built a philosophy of inner freedom. None of them had perfect circumstances. None of them waited for the ideal moment. None of them postponed living according to their principles. And that is the final lesson. You do not need perfect circumstances. You need an unbreakable commitment to live by your highest values now. You do not need the ideal moment. You need the courage to act in the imperfect moment you already have. You do not need more time. You need to use the time you already have better. And all of that is completely under your control right now. So the final question is not whether you understood these teachings. The question is, what will you do with them? Will you listen, nod, and then return to the exact same life you were living before? Or will you use them as the awakening they are meant to be? That choice is entirely yours. No one can make it for you. Not even these teachings can force you to choose differently. They can only show you the truth and the cost of ignoring it. The rest is up to you. You can remain as you are, comfortable, familiar, safe, mediocre, regretful in the end. Or you can change now. Uncomfortable, unknown, risky, exceptional, fulfilled in the end. Both options are valid, but only one allows you to die in peace. Marcus Aurelius died knowing he lived by his principles, that he gave everything, that he did not waste his life in comfortable mediocrity. Seneca died facing death calmly because he had lived fully, without regret for untaken chances. Epictetus died mentally free, even after having been physically enslaved, because he chose inner transformation over external comfort. That final peace is available to you, but only if you choose to live now the truths these teachings revealed. Only if you stop making excuses and start transforming. Only if you let go of destructive comfort and embrace liberating discomfort. The Stoics showed you the path. They walked the path. They left clear instructions for the path. But walking it is entirely your responsibility. No one can walk it for you. No one can save you. No one can give you more time than you already have. Only you, through the daily choice to live by these truths, can become who you are meant to be. Before it is too late. Before time runs out. Before the exceptional version of you is so dead it can no longer be revived. This hurt. It was supposed to, because truth always hurts before it frees. But now that it hurts, now that the truth is exposed, you have the power to act on it. Use that power, not later. Now, because now is all you have. And you are wasting it every moment you choose a comforting lie over an uncomfortable truth. Stop wasting it. Start living fully, authentically. without regret, because that is exactly what these Stoic teachings are calling you to do, and that call cannot be ignored without consequences. The consequences of a life unlived, of unrealized potential, of a final regret you could have avoided but chose to create through thousands of small, comfortable choices. Do not choose that. Choose to live. Now, your voice matters here more than you think. Every insight you share strengthens and elevates this community, because this isn't just another space. It's a circle of people who choose to live with intention, with discipline, and with character. Each of you leaves a mark, and the reflection that receives the most support will be pinned as a banner of who we are. Not as decoration, but as a reminder of the kind of warrior who chooses to think, feel, and act with stoic clarity. Because this is a community that doesn't run from pain, it walks through it with courage. A community that doesn't look for cheap comfort, it seeks wisdom. A community that doesn't break under adversity, it turns it into strength. And if you've made it this far, it's because something inside you is already shifting. Something is waking up. Something is asking for more. So, before you leave, check the description. There you'll find the paths we created to help you keep strengthening your mind. They're not there by accident. Each one exists to help you go deeper, build inner resilience, and return again and again to that place within you where nothing and no one can take your peace. Subscribing isn't doing the podcast a favor. It's an act of respect toward yourself. It's choosing not to live on autopilot anymore. It's committing to think differently, to feel with more order, to live with more intention. Because every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we publish reflections designed to stay with you when life gets heavy, when your mind gets loud, when you need a reminder of who you are. Not following us means risking missing the one lesson you might need in the hardest moment. And if you choose to go a step further, if you choose to become a member, understand one thing clearly. You're not donating, you're sustaining a mission. Because of you, this flame stays alive. Because of you, we can keep spreading Stoicism as a refuge for millions who are fighting not to give up. Your support is what keeps this podcast alive, strong, and growing. You're not a spectator, you're part of the foundation holding this community together. I'll see you in our next Stoicism for Winners session, where we'll keep exploring the depth of Stoic wisdom applied to everyday life. In the meantime, dive into the recommended sessions in the description and continue your path. And until we cross paths again, don't forget this. You are the master of your perception, the guardian of your peace, and the warrior of your own battle. That is the legacy of Stoicism. That is the art of becoming invincible.